Friday morning at 10:30 a.m. Because he had been inactive for several days, Max's legs were numb and weak, and he was still working to regain strength in them. "It will hurt a little bit now, but it will be fine in a few days," the nurse said with a positive expression on her face. Max mumbled and continued to put in his effort. 30 minutes of therapy left him feeling exhausted and hungry. A smile appeared on the nurse's face as she assisted Max in climbing onto the bed. "Rest up, and we start tomorrow again," she said. "The doctor will be here to see you." As Max lay there with his eyes closed, he was roused from his sleep by the sound of a deep voice calling his name. This occurred a few minutes later. As he stood there, Dr. Thomas was holding a few papers. "How are we feeling this morning, Max?" he asked his companion. "Much better than yesterday," Max remarked. The physician gave a slight nod of his head and then positioned some X-rays on the display device so that he could view them visually. Max was the next person he went to after consulting his chart. "I must say, I'm very impressed with your progress," he stated to reporters. "As can be seen from the X-rays, your ribs and the fractures on your skull have almost completely recovered from their injuries. In addition to this, it seems as though your testicles have almost completely recovered and are operating their normal functions. I have noticed that the swelling on your face is almost completely gone, and the bruising has experienced a significant reduction. Whatever it is that you are doing, I ask that you continue doing it. It is possible that we will be able to discharge you within the next few days or so if things continue as they are." "It is encouraging to hear that, Doctor," Max said. "You mentioned my testicles. How badly were they damaged?" The doctor stated that the condition was so severe that they were considered for removal. However, as I mentioned earlier, it appears that they have almost completely recovered at this point. On a scale from 1 to 10, with 1 being the least amount of pain and 10 being the most, how would you rate the overall level of pain that you are experiencing?" "Overall, I'd say about 2 or so," Max said, referring to the population. The physician remarked, "Good," as he made a notation in his notebook. "We will keep a close eye on the situation for a while, and I will make any necessary adjustments to your medication. You just stay in bed and get better, all right? Are there any questions that you would like to ask me before I leave?" A hush fell over Maximum. 2 minutes passed while he was fixated on the physician. "I don't think so. The following is something that I have heard before, a discussion about my injuries, an unexpected recovery, discharge, and a rating of my pain. I am familiar with this in the past." Max's head was throbbing with a severe pain, and he was suffering from confusion. "Did you have a dream? Was it all real? That woman, a dresser, Nemesis, the goddess Eli, and the warrior all appeared before me. My mind is just playing games, that's all." While Max was attempting to make sense of everything, he closed his eyes. Soon enough, he dozed off, attempting to find some peace. "Find me, Max," she said, and with that, my love, a dresser, was there. Simply put, she was standing right in front of me. In reality, it is an illusion. Become awake, Maximum. This woman is not real. Tomorrow is the day that Dany Jones will meet you. He was able to hear the sweet voice whispering in his ears, "You know what to do." Max awoke with intense trembling. This is Dany Jones. Such a name is familiar to me. Although she is a lawyer, how will she be able to recognize me? Why is she going to assist me? All of these thoughts, the agony has suddenly returned. While Max was attempting to calm down, he closed his eyes. Following the conclusion of Max's workout the following morning, the nurse assisted him in getting into bed. After a few minutes had passed, she came back. "A woman is interested in meeting you," the speaker said. According to her, her name is Dany Jones, and she maintains that it is of utmost significance. Max paused and asked, "Would you kindly send her in?" Following the departure of the nurse, Dany entered the room. While she was standing close to Max, she put her hand on his chest and said, "I was told you wanted to meet me and discuss something urgent." "How did you know that I wanted to meet you?" Max inquired about it. "Your assistant reached out to me," I reported. She told me that it was an urgent matter and that you wanted to file for divorce, but I failed to remember her name. What exactly took place between you and your wife today?" Max was stunned and remained silent. It was unknown to anyone that there were problems between him and his wife, and he does not have any assistant under his employ. "Can you tell me about this woman who called Dany?" His intention was to divorce his wife, and he made the decision to play along and take advantage of this opportunity to do so. Max explained everything, including the fact that his wife had been unfaithful to him, Jake and his lackey wanting him to clean up their accounts, and the cherry on top, the fact that he does not want to share his $10 million in assets with his wife of $10 million. It would appear that the gods are keeping a close eye on you, as your broken bones have healed in an unprecedented amount of time, your testicles have not been amputated, and your fractured skull has completely healed. In my opinion, Mr. Burns, you are the miracle man. On the other hand, considering the circumstances, it would be prudent for you to obtain a discharge and then go underground. I believe that your wife would be better off if you were to pass away. To assist you with it, I will make arrangements for a friend of mine to do so. Regarding your divorce, do you have a personal attorney in your possession, or would you like me to file for your divorce on your behalf? Saul, my attorney, can help with the divorce, but I do need to get out of here and would appreciate all the help I can get, Max stated in response. The paperwork was reviewed by Dany, who sat next to Max and did so. Approximately 1 hour was spent going over everything, and when Dany felt that the paperwork was finished, she allowed herself to relax and take a break. "It was okay," she said. "I'll get with your attorney on this, and we'll get it done." She gave Max his mobile phone in her hand. It was Max who inquired, "How did you get my phone?" "Your secretary sent it over in an envelope." After taking the phone, Max dialed Saul's number. His attorney inquired, "Max, how are you feeling?" when he responded to the question. "It's getting much better for me, Saul." "I am grateful that you asked," Max said. "Listen, I need a huge favor from you," said Saul. "Anytime, my friend," he replied. "What's going on?" "Well, it's rather complicated, and I really don't want to get into it over the phone," said Max in response. "I have some things that need to be done quickly, and I have someone who is now on her way to see you, and her name is Dany Jones. I'd appreciate it if you could collaborate with her to speed up a few things for me." "Yes, I do remember her," Saul said. "Oh yes. According to my recollection, she is the one who took a significant bite out of Acme. The situation must be very serious if she is involved." "I have more information to share with you at this time," Max said. "I've signed all the papers, and I've given permission for her to work with you on my behalf." "With an okay, Max," Saul said. "At this very moment, I am in the midst of something, but I should be available around 1 o'clock around the clock. I'll give the office a call and let them know that they should see her soon." A glance was given to Dany by Max before he spoke. She was asked, "Is 1 a.m. good time for you?" by him. She indicated her agreement with a nod of her head, and he returned his focus to the phone. "This is a good time. It is expected that she will be present. Your assistance is greatly appreciated." He laughed out loud. A chuckle came out of his mouth as he said, "Just wait until you get my bill." Max laughed as well, and they ended the call. "Saul Dunnetz will be expecting you at 1 o'clock, he said. "Do you know where his office is?" "Yes, I do, and I'll be there," she said, standing up. "I better get going. I'd like a bite to eat before I meet with him." "It's good to meet you, Max," she added, extending her hand. Max shook her hand and watched as she left. A few seconds later, Max was left thinking it was all the same. Just like my dream. Just 2 people were missing from the room. Everything else was just the same. Max looked at his phone and then looked out of the window of his room. His mind was racing. He closed his eyes and held the phone near his chest. He looked at the phone and his fingers started typing. He felt his mind blank. He could see that he was typing something, but he was not commanding his fingers. It felt like they had a mind of their own. He tried to control them and stop, but he could not. What is happening to me? His fingers stopped. He looked at the screen and was shocked. It read, "I agree to do Mario's books. Assistant will meet you at Four Seasons restaurant at 6 p.m. Bring everything. Don't look for her, she'll find you." "Okay, what about my demands?" Shannon responded. "You'll get what's coming to you." Why did I type all this? I did not want to do anything with her. I just wanted to get away. Max suddenly felt another wave of pain taking over his body. His body went limp. His eyes could see, but his body could not move. Then he saw her. A dresser was standing over him. Her white robe was flowing, and it seemed that she was hovering in the air. Max smiled, or he thought he did. "Eli will be here. Go with him. He will get you where you need to be. Be prepared for what is about to come and never lose hope. I am always with you, and I will always love you." She came down and kissed him on his lips. A sudden jolt woke up Maximum. He was still holding onto his phone, but he could still feel the warmth of the kiss on his lips. Max fell asleep the same way. That evening, the nurse came and informed Max that he was ready for discharge and that there was someone to pick him up. She helped Max into a wheelchair and assisted him to the tall man standing in the lobby to pick him up. Max knew that face. He saw him in his dreams. It was Eli. Before Max could say anything, Eli raised his hand and said, "We have a long way ahead, and we can talk on the way." Max got up from his wheelchair and walked out with him. As they drove by, there was a crowd standing by and looking at medical staff loading 2 bodies into an ambulance. "Did you really kill them?" Max asked Eli. "Well, I just tried some moves that I saw on TV. I did not know it would kill them." "So the dreams are real? You're real? A dresser is real?" Max said in a low tone. "Don't rush on it, kid. Not everything that you see in your dream will come to life. Some of the things do come true, but a lot of that does not. All of that depends on your actions," Eli said. "So the dreams are just a trailer. The actual movie might be different?" Max questioned. "In case you chicken out, nothing that you see will matter. So to check if you're the real deal and not a chicken, you must go through a test." "What test?" "I don't know. It just happens, and at times you just might not know if you went through it and passed. You do get to know for sure if you fail. In your case, I guess you have passed, and that is why you're going to the dungeon." "The dungeon?" Max asked. "Well, it's called Camp Rollins, but I call it the dungeon. It gives an extra level of machismo to it. It's a facility to train you and get you ready. I saw it in my dreams and passed it successfully." "I bet you did." "Everyone does in their dreams." Max and Eli took a flight to Spokane and, in a few hours, were standing in front of Camp Rollins. "This is as far as I can take you. You need to go ahead on your own now. Best of luck, and I hope you don't chicken out. A word of advice, choose your fights wisely. You don't need to fight everyone, and at times your enemies will dig their own graves." Eli then handed Max an external hard drive. "They will teach you how to decrypt it, and you will decide how to use it. Your beloved wife has given this. She wanted you to fix all her wrongs. We have already disabled the tracker and worked through the encryption on the files, and I got rid of the virus they put on the drive." Max took the drive and went inside. The first month of camp was rough on Max, but he expected it. They ran everywhere, up and down steep hills, through obstacle courses that included rope climbs into tall trees, and into the gym where they worked out with weights until their arms could hardly move. They were given exercises that made little sense to him at the time. These workouts took place every day from 5 a.m. until 6:30 p.m. That was the time they returned from dinner and were allowed to have 1 cigarette in formation outside their barracks. The only other break the students got was on Sundays. Those who wished went to church. The rest were given jobs around the camp, mowing the grass or washing laundry. That was also the day they were allowed to write letters. Max had no one to write to, and no one sent him any letters. He worked only on the drive given to him. The camp authorities did give him a laptop to work with. That is the only thing he did in his spare time. He gathered all the evidence and found it was a treasure trove of multiple crimes: illegal guns, drugs, human trafficking, graft, pay-for-play, you name it. It also had transactions with a number of elected officials across the country, bank details, amounts, and phone numbers. Prisons are going to be full, I guess, he said to himself. Meanwhile, 1,500 miles away, Shannon and Jake were beside themselves trying to get a lock on Max's location. Shannon was even more concerned, given that she handed over the drive to his assistant. She still hated the tall blondie. Max must be sleeping with her. That witch will pay. Once I get my hands on Max, I will take out that witch. She was still concerned when it came to Maximum. He needs to be here so she can take away his money. She thought it odd that she never heard from him. No texts, no calls, no emails, nothing. Nevertheless, all their bills were being paid, and she received a weekly stipend which she spent on food and other things she needed. She began to wonder if maybe Jake and Mario had taken him out. She broached the subject to Jake a couple of times, but he shut her down. As for the updates on Mario's books, all they received were anonymous emails saying they were being processed. When they tried responding, all they got were error messages saying the address they attempted to contact did not exist. What they didn't know is that enough information had already been forwarded to certain agencies who were preparing to make some big arrests. Max finally got to the 3rd month of his training and found that he enjoyed the close combat and self-defense training he received. Of course, the physical training and psychological counseling continued. They also offered him free legal help, but he turned that down since he already had an attorney working his case. Then came the Burn the Witch ceremony, which marked the end of their training. The instructors gathered them outside after dinner around a pole that had a pile of wood around it. A straw figure lay on the ground next to it. When I give the command, take one photo of your spouse and pin it to the figure, their senior instructor commanded. Ready, move! They all pulled a photo of their spouse and pinned it to the figure. All Max had was a photo he got from the PI that showed both Shannon and Jake. He stabbed a pin through Shannon's face, securing the photo to the figure. Burn the figure, the instructor ordered. They picked up the straw effigy and tied it securely to the pole. Binatch, front and center, the sergeant ordered. Max stepped in front of the sergeant, who handed him a lit torch. He grabbed the torch with both hands and held tight. Burn the witch, the sergeant ordered. Sir, burn the witch, aye, sir. Max shouted in response. He walked to the pile of wood below the straw effigy and set it on fire. The flames licked up, catching the straw figure on fire. Burn! 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 They all chanted as flames devoured the straw figure. The photos quickly curled up and burned to ash. Burn! 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 The men shouted, pumping their fists in the air. They continued to chant and pump their fists in the air. The chants turned into howls and angry growls as the figure burned. The men sounded more like wild animals than human beings as they howled. Soon the figure fell off the pole and burned as it lay on the ground. A few of them unzipped their trousers and urinated on the figure. Max joined them. The sergeant gave everyone a beer from a chest at his feet, and they celebrated the end of their training. Max joined several others and lit up a cigarette to go with his beer. The next morning, Max got up and followed the rest of the class into the head, where he showered, shaved, and got ready for the day. After getting dressed in freshly laundered jeans and denim shirts, the class went to breakfast, retrieved the stuff they turned in, then formed up for the graduation. The camp commander and the senior instructor stood before them. "You men have come a long way since you arrived," the camp commander said. "You came here scared, uncertain about your future, defeated and humiliated by the ones you love the most. Now you've gotten your manhood back. You look like men with the confidence to take on the world. You have the tools and the wherewithal to take on and successfully complete whatever you set out to do. I wish the best for each one of you. Remember, we're here for you 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. If you need anything at all, even someone to talk to, we're here for you. Now go and take on the world." Their senior sergeant stood in front of the class. "Class, attention! Dismissed!" The men hooted as they picked up their bags and headed to the bus, stopping to shake the sergeant's hand. Many of them gathered before entering the bus to exchange contact information, promising to stay in contact with each other. Max headed to the airport and saw Eli waiting for him. He walked up to him and shook his hand. "You look better, kid. I guess they fed you well." "Yep, they did. It was tougher than I thought, but I survived," Max laughed. On the flight, Max and Eli were seated together. Max asked, "In one of my recent dreams, I got a power of making people do my will. Do I get that power in real life? How do I know I have that power?" Eli smiled and said, "You never know until you use it. Time will tell." A few hours later, they came out of the airport. "You should know that Shannon, Jake, and some of Mario's boys are at your house," Eli said. "Amos is with the private investigator, keeping an eye on things. I'm told there are some sheriff's deputies with them. Are you going to be able to handle this?" Max took a deep breath and let it out slowly. "I'm ready to get this done." Eli nodded. Not having any luggage, the two of them went outside and flagged down a cab. Before they got in, though, a young man on a skateboard came zipping down the sidewalk, bowling over a woman pushing a baby stroller. "Hey, you!" Max ordered. The teenage boy on the skateboard stopped and turned to Max. "Are you talking to me?" the teenager asked. Max took in the rings he wore in his nose and upper lip. "Yeah, you," Max said. "Get over here and apologize to this woman, now," he ordered. The kid just flipped his middle finger at Max and walked away. Eli started laughing and said, "I guess that power is still manifesting." Max stood there and looked at Eli. "Yep, I guess I need to wait." Eventually, they made their way to Max's house, which sat on a 5-acre wooded lot on the edge of town. They came upon a pickup that Eli recognized. He asked the driver to pull over for a second. The driver pulled over, and Amos came to the cab. "There are 4 fellas inside with Mrs. Burns and her lawyer friend," he said. "Process server and sheriff's deputies are here with arrest warrants for all of them." "Okay," Eli said. "Follow us inside." Amos nodded his head and walked back to the deputies on the other side of the road. Eli gave the signal for the driver to pull into Max's property. Max paid the driver with his credit card and got out of the vehicle. Eli got out on the other side. He directed the others to follow close behind him and waved the cab driver off. After the cab left the property, Max, Eli, Amos, the process server, and 2 deputies went to the front door, while a 3rd deputy went behind the house to enter from the back door. Max opened the door and walked in. The 4 goons turned and began to pull out their weapons. Max moved fast and landed quick blows on the 4 goons, knocking them out cold. He walked in and saw Shannon and Jake sitting in the living room. The process server walked up to Shannon and handed her the divorce papers. "Miss Shannon Burns, you have been served." She took the papers in her hand. Max walked up to Jake, held him by his throat, and looked straight into his eyes. He let him go, walked a step back, and punched him right on the nose. It broke with a cracking sound, and Jake went down to the ground, holding it with his hands. "Shannon, there is a pen on the table." "Sign the papers," Max said. "No, you are not getting away that easy," she shot back. Max picked up Jake and looked towards Eli. Eli handed him a baton. Max took it and landed a swift blow to Jake's left knee. The room filled with Jake's screams as he fell to the floor. "So, Shannon, are you signing the papers?" "No," her voice shook. Max placed his foot at Jake's right ankle and landed another blow on Jake's right knee. Jake screamed. "Just sign the damn papers, which? He will kill me." Shannon was on her knees by now, shaking and quickly signing the papers. Max felt a hand on his shoulder. He looked back to see a dresser's shadow, but he felt something in him, something growing, something in his throat. Max looked at Shannon and Jake. The cops will be here, and they will arrest you. You will cooperate in the investigation and will answer all questions honestly. Do I make myself clear? Their eyes looked blank, and they nodded. Eli walked up to Max and said, I guess your power just manifested. Cops soon walked in and arrested both Shannon and Jake. 2 days later, Max and Eli stood outside Mario's penthouse. A big man was guarding the door. Max walked up to him and politely said, You need to let me in. The man opened the door and closed it at once. Max and Eli entered. Soon, they were standing near the pool deck. Mario was in a deep conversation with his lawyer. Who are you? Mario asked as he stood up. Yes, the lawyer said, Speak up, man. Who are you, and how did you get here? Don't you recognize the accountant you wanted to do your books? You really should know who you're doing business with, Mario, Max said. What? Mario asked. What are you talking about? I'm the guy Jake and Shannon told you about, Max said. Oh, so you're the accountant who double-crossed me, Mario said. Do you know who you're dealing with? Do you realize I can have you taken out with a single call? Max chuckled. The real question is, do you know who you're dealing with? Max said. Mario took a step back. He wasn't used to people standing up to him. He considered his options before speaking. All right, Mario said. You've got my attention. Now tell me what I need to do to make things right with you. You do know that even if the feds come after me, I'll never spend a minute behind bars. My lawyers will keep the courts tied up for years. So tell me what it is you want. Money? I've got lots of it. Women? I've got more than I can shake a stick at. You can have some of it, as much as you want. Just name your price. Max felt his face turn red with anger. Deep down, he knew that Mario was right. Even though he deserved to spend the rest of his life in prison, he knew Mario's attorneys would fight tooth and nail to keep him out, and he would be free. Free to ruin more lives and free to prosper off the ruin he left behind. There was nothing remotely redeeming about this creature, and Max knew he had to be eliminated. There's only one thing you can do that would satisfy me, Max said. Name it, Mario said. Anything. Max smiled, but there was no warmth in his smile. Drop dead, Max commanded. Mario began to smile, but the smile faded. He brought a hand to his chest and gasped for air but was unable to breathe. He looked at Max one last time before his eyes rolled up. He fell to the concrete, his eyes glazed over in death. The lawyer looked at Max, shocked. Who are you? He asked. Max Binach, Max told him. And as far as you're concerned, I don't exist. I was never here. Understand? Yes, I understand, the lawyer stammered. Good. Now go to sleep, and when you wake up, you won't remember a thing. After falling to the ground, the attorney fell to his knees, his eyes closed in a deep slumber. Together, Max and Eli left the house and made their way back to Max's residence. Eli remarked, My work here is done, while Max was busy going through the motions of opening the lock on the front door. I can tell from what I see that you do not require my assistance. Rest in peace, Maximum. Max made a turnaround, but there was no one there. Eli had vanished into thin air without a trace. Up until this point, Max had become accustomed to witnessing people vanish. After that, Max went to sleep a full day. The moment he opened his eyes, he immediately turned on the television. He was brought to his attention by a report that was about Mario. The anchor stated, this just into Eyewitness News, as some news broke. The body of Mario Alvarez, a notorious mob boss, was discovered inside his home in New York. It was determined by the coroner that he had an aneurysm and that he ended up bleeding out internally. His attorney was discovered in a deep sleep near Alvarez's pool, and according to the authorities, he had no recollection of the incident that occurred. After receiving files from an unknown source that contained information about Alvarez's alleged activities, federal authorities began to conduct a thorough investigation into both Alvarez and his organization. Associated with this, the body of a local attorney who had connections to Alvarez was discovered inside his cell. Officials at the correctional facility have stated that it appears that the individual, who has not yet been identified, took his own life. Additionally, it appears that a woman who was arrested alongside the attorney also experienced a panic attack. She is currently being held for observation until further notice. Eyewitness News will continue to provide you with additional updates. As Max turned off the television, he couldn't help but laugh. After some time had passed, he could hear someone knocking on his door. When he looked through the peephole, he noticed Detective Hansen, and he opened the door for him. "Greetings in the morning, Detective. What is it that I can do to assist you? You have a minute?" Hansen inquired. "Sure, come on in. I was just curious to know if you can tell us anything about what happened with your wife and her attorney friend." The head of Max was shaken. "No, I am unable to share any information with you. Since the time that she was taken into custody, I have not communicated with her. You might be able to explain what took place to me." The shoulders of Hansen simply shrugged. "I am at a loss for words to adequately say what it is. Something was said by your wife about seeing creatures in her cell while she was sleeping alone. She had a pretty hilarious demeanor. She was placed in the psychiatric ward of the jail after they were forced to sedate her." "Did she confess to what she had done?" Max inquired about it. "It is not the only thing she did. As if they were canaries, every single person that we picked up sang. After hearing everything that they admitted, it is going to take us several weeks to read it all." "You have no idea what you're talking about. What do you say?" "I suggested that they reveal everything that they were capable of. What could possibly be wrong with that, is there?" "No, I don't think so. I just wanted to let you know that you look extremely much better than you did the last time I saw you." "You're very welcome, sir. What a difference 3 months in the country can make in your life is truly remarkable. I suppose that's the case. Do you not have anything else to put forward?" The head of Max was shaken. "Not a thing." Attorney Hansen gave a slight nod of his head. He said, "Okay," as he was getting ready to leave. "Call me if you can think of anything." "Of course." Following the detective's departure, Max greeted him at the door, shook his hand, and then immediately shut the door behind him. Immediately following the conclusion of the detective's departure, he went to his home office and sat down in front of his computer. He started typing while simultaneously making entries in the spreadsheet. He then opened Word and Excel on his computer. He labored for a considerable amount of time, pausing only to get something to eat. As soon as he was finished, he proceeded to take a seat and examine his work while smiling to himself. He took a cup of tea and one of Eli's cigarettes with him as he stepped onto the back deck of his home. Benedict Agency went through his mind at that moment. The way that sounded appealed to him. The name was something that he liked even more, so he repeated it to himself a few times. While he was taking a deep drag from his cigarette, he became aware of a soft female voice appearing in his mind. When he thought about it, he heard a dresser say, "Cheaters beware," and it was as clear as if she were standing right next to him. After giving it some thought for a while, he smiled to himself as he did so. In agreement, he nodded his head and repeated, "Cheaters beware." He did not address anyone in particular with this statement. I am pleased to inform you that Max, who is now an angel of vengeance, will be returning with another story. If you have any thoughts, please share them in the comment section below. Also, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to this channel.